The smarter you are, the harder it is to build wealth. It sounds backward. We are taught that intelligence is the ultimate leverage. We assume that if you are smart enough to become a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer, you are smart enough to be rich. But if IQ correlated strictly with net worth, university professors would be billionaires and librarians would be driving Ferraris. They aren't. In fact, high achievers are often the most financially fragile people I meet. They earn high incomes, yet they have surprisingly low wealth. They are running incredibly fast, but they are running on a treadmill. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why that happens. You will see why your own intelligence might be the single biggest barrier to your financial freedom, and more importantly, how to turn that liability back into an asset. Let's be direct. You are likely not struggling because you don't make enough money. If you are watching this, you probably earn a decent living. You might even be in the top 10% of earners. But earning money and building wealth are two completely different skill sets. Most smart people treat money like a logic puzzle. They think if they can just build the perfect spreadsheet, find the optimal asset allocation, or time the market just right, they will win. They view finance as an engineering problem to be solved with more data and more complexity. But wealth is not an engineering problem, it is a behavioral problem, and this is where high intelligence becomes a liability. See, when you are smart, you are incredible at rationalization. You can construct a perfectly logical argument for why you need that lifestyle upgrade, why that risky investment makes sense, or why you can wait just one more year to start compounding. You aren't losing the money game because you can't do the math. You are losing because you are too good at telling yourself stories. You think you can outsmart the system. You think the boring rules of patience don't apply to you because you can find a shortcut. But in finance, complexity is the enemy of execution. The broke genius is a cliche for a reason. They have the engine power, the high income, but they have a broken steering wheel. They are running incredibly fast in the wrong direction. To change this, we need to look at the operating system running in the background. There are three specific, deeply held beliefs that smart people use to justify financial stagnation. The first one is the most dangerous, because it masquerades as ambition. This belief is exceptionalism. It is the quiet, subconscious conviction that the rules of probability apply to everyone else, but not to you. If you are watching this, you have likely spent your entire life being the exception. You were the exception in your classroom, the exception in your university, and the exception in your career trajectory. You are used to being the outlier. You are used to effort correlating directly with reward. So when you look at financial statistics, like the fact that over a 15-year period, nearly 90% of professional fund managers fail to beat the S&P 500, you don't see a warning sign. You see a challenge. You think, sure, most people fail. But I am not most people. I am smarter. I research harder. I have better intuition. This is the single most expensive thought you can have. In almost every other area of life, being above average is a matter of effort and skill. If you practice the piano more than others, you will be better at piano. If you study engineering harder than your peers, you will be a better engineer. But financial markets do not work like a skill-based hierarchy. They work like a complex adaptive system. The market does not care about your GPA. It does not care how many hours you spent analyzing a balance sheet. Here is the trap that catches the genius. Intelligence breeds complexity. And in finance, complexity is the enemy of returns. Because you are smart, you are allergic to simplicity. Buying a low-cost index fund and doing nothing for 30 years feels lazy. It feels like quitting. It feels average. And you have spent your whole life fighting to not be average. So instead, you tinker, you try to optimize, you look for the edge, you try to time the market because you can see the macroeconomic trends that others miss. You buy complex derivatives or pick individual stocks because you have convinced yourself you found an asymmetry the market overlooked. You confuse possibility with probability. Is it possible to beat the market by trading individual stocks? Yes. Is it probable that you, trading part-time against algorithms that process news in microseconds, will do it consistently over 3 decades? No. The data is humiliatingly clear on this. The more active the investor, the lower the returns. The smartest people often have the worst portfolios because they cannot resist the urge to intervene. They treat their portfolio like a race car that needs constant tuning when they should be treating it like a tree that needs to be left alone. While the average investor accepts the market return, does nothing, and lets compounding do the heavy lifting, the smart investor interrupts the process. You sell when you get scared because you over-intellectualize the risk. You buy when you get greedy because you rationalize the valuation. You are paying a complexity tax just to satisfy your intellectual ego. You have to realize that the stock market is not a place to prove how smart you are. It is a place to grow wealth. Those are often two opposing goals. If you want excitement and intellectual validation, go play chess. If you want wealth, you have to be willing to be bored. You must accept that in this specific domain, you are not the exception. You are just liquidity. And the moment you stop trying to outsmart the system is the moment you can finally let the system work for you. But getting out of your own way is only the first step. Even if you accept the math, there is a second, more insidious belief that keeps high earners running on a treadmill they can't turn off. It changes how you perceive value itself. This belief is the obsession with efficiency. Specifically, the deeply internalized idea that time is money. On the surface, this sounds like wisdom. It is the mantra of the productive, the ambitious, and the successful. From a young age, you are taught that your time is your most valuable asset, so you must maximize the return on every single hour. You calculate your hourly rate, let's say it's $500 an hour, and you begin to view every moment of your existence through that lens. But here is where most people get it wrong. When you believe time is money, you inadvertently commodify your existence. You sign a psychological contract that says you are only valuable when you are grinding. Smart people fall for this harder than anyone else. Because you have a high market value, you feel a moral obligation to capture that value. Taking a nap feels like losing $500. Reading a book for pleasure feels like a wasted opportunity cost. You become incapable of stillness because stillness isn't billable. This creates a dangerous distortion in how you view wealth. You start to confuse income with wealth. Let's clarify this distinction because it is where the vast majority of high earners get stuck. Income is how much money you earn in a given year. It is a stream. You have to show up to the river with a bucket to collect it. If you stop showing up, the bucket stays dry. Wealth, on the other hand, is the assets that earn while you sleep. It is a reservoir. It fills up whether you are standing there or not. When you operate under the time is money belief, you optimize for income. You work longer hours, you take on more stressful projects, and you chase promotions to increase that hourly rate. You build a life that requires your constant, exhausting presence to fund it. This is the treadmill. You are running faster and faster, earning more and more, but you are not moving an inch toward freedom. In fact, you are moving away from it. I know corporate lawyers who make $800,000 a year, but cannot afford to take a Tuesday afternoon off to watch their child's soccer game. They are rich, but they are not wealthy. They are simply highly paid laborers. They have built a golden cage, and the lock is their own lifestyle. See, the true measure of wealth is not the number in your bank account. It is the amount of time you have full autonomy over. If you earn $1 million a year, but you have to be on Zoom calls from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to keep it coming, you are not wealthy. You are indentured. You have just negotiated a better rate for your servitude. The shift you need to make, the one that separates the tired rich from the truly wealthy, is to stop trying to sell your time for more money and start using your money to buy back your time. This is deeply counterintuitive for smart people because it often involves taking a step back in efficiency to take a leap forward in equity. It means rejecting the promotion that pays more but demands your soul. It means ignoring the urge to upgrade your house just because the bank says you can afford the monthly payments. You have to realize that in the pursuit of wealth, efficiency is often the enemy of freedom. Building real wealth requires leverage, and leverage requires detachment. You need assets, businesses, real estate, index funds that work instead of you, not because of you. But the time is money mindset makes this transition incredibly painful. It tells you that passive investing is boring or slow. It tells you that you should be doing something to earn that return. It makes you feel guilty for the days you aren't exhausted. You must give yourself permission to be inefficient. You must understand that the goal is not to be the highest paid person in the room. The goal is to be the person who doesn't have to be in the room. Once you break this link between your time and your money, the treadmill stops. You step off. You realize that you didn't need to run faster. You needed to be on a different track entirely. However, even if you conquer your ego and stop trying to outsmart the market, and even if you conquer your impatience and stop selling your time, there is one final belief that stands in the way. It is the most personal one of all. It's not about how you view the market or how you view time, it's about how you view yourself. And this third belief is the reason why, no matter how much the number in the account grows, it never feels like enough. This belief is the scoreboard mentality. It is the quiet, subconscious agreement that your net worth is the objective measure of your value as a human being. For smart people, this is almost impossible to shake. You have spent your entire life being graded. You entered the world in a system of clear metrics. You had GPAs, test scores, university rankings, and performance reviews. You thrive in environments where effort creates a measurable output that tells you, unequivocally, you are good enough. But when you leave the structured world of education, the report cards stop. The external validation vanishes. And in the silence that follows, you look for a proxy. You look for a new number to tell you where you stand in the hierarchy. Money becomes that number. You start to treat your finances not as a resource to support your life, but as a high score in a video game. And this is where the trap snaps shut. Because unlike a test score, which has a maximum of 100%, the money game has no ceiling. There is always someone with a bigger exit. There is always someone with a better performing portfolio. There is always a peer from university who just made partner while you are still a senior associate. When you use money as a scorecard, you are playing a game where the goalposts are mounted on wheels. Every time you reach a milestone, the six-figure salary, the $1 million net worth, the dopamine hit lasts for about 48 hours. Then, you look up, you see the next level, and you feel behind again. This psychological defect is why we see the phenomenon of the poor high earner. I know executives who earn 7 figures a year but feel genuinely broke. They aren't broke in their bank accounts, they are broke in their egos. They look at their friends in private equity or tech who made 10 million and they feel like failures. So, how do they cope with that insecurity? They spend. They buy the house in the specific zip code that signals I have arrived. They join the club that signals I am elite. They upgrade the car because the old one, while perfectly functional, doesn't match the level they think they should be at. Please understand, they are not buying these things for the utility. A $100,000 luxury SUV does not get you to the grocery store faster than a $30,000 sedan. They are buying these things as therapy. They are spending money to soothe the anxiety of not feeling like they are enough. This is the most dangerous form of lifestyle creep. It isn't about comfort, it is about validation. You are trading your actual financial freedom for the appearance of financial success. You are destroying your balance sheet to protect your self-image. The irony, of course, is that wealth is what you don't see. Wealth is the nice cars not purchased, the diamonds not bought, the first-class upgrades declined. Wealth is financial assets that haven't yet been converted into the trappings of a rich life. But if your identity is tied to the scoreboard, you cannot bear to be invisible. You need the world to know you are winning. You need the display. And that need for display is the tax you pay on your insecurity. To break this, you have to do something that feels incredibly unnatural to a high achiever. You have to stop playing the status game. You have to realize that no one is looking at your scorecard as closely as you are. In fact, when you drive a Ferrari, people don't look at you and think, wow, that guy is cool. They look at the car and think, wow, I would look cool in that car. You don't get the admiration, you just provide the backdrop for their own fantasies. Real financial maturity is when you decouple your self-worth from your net worth. It is when you realize that money is a tool for autonomy, not a badge of honor. You must define what enough looks like for you. Not for your parents, not for your peers on LinkedIn, but for you. If you cannot define enough, you are not running a race, you are running on a treadmill. And the only way to win a treadmill race is to step off. Once you dismantle these three beliefs, exceptionalism, the time trap, and the scoreboard mentality, the path to wealth becomes boringly simple. It stops being an emotional struggle and starts being a mathematical inevitability. So, what replaces these beliefs? If you delete the need to be exceptional, the obsession with efficiency, and the scoreboard mentality, what is left? The antidote is a concept that is boring to the gambler but revolutionary to the wealthy. It is the shift from playing a status game to playing a solvency game. When you stop trying to impress strangers, you realize that wealth is actually a simple ratio. It has nothing to do with how much you earn and everything to do with your burn rate. Consider this: a high-flying executive earning $500,000 a year but spending $480,000 to maintain the image of that life is remarkably fragile. They are running on a treadmill at speed level 10. If they trip, if they lose that job or face a health crisis, they fly off the back immediately. Their wealth is an illusion of cash flow. Now compare them to a boring professional earning $150,000 but spending $70,000. This person has an unbreachable gap. They are accumulating freedom at a rate the executive cannot touch. This brings us to the only number that actually matters. It is not your IQ, and it is not your salary. It is your crossover point. The crossover point is the moment your assets generate enough cash flow to cover your lifestyle. And the math to get there is shockingly simple. It is often called the rule of 25. Take your annual spending and multiply it by 25. That is your finish line. If you spend $100,000 a year to live a happy life, you need $2.5 million invested in boring, diversified assets. Once you hit that number, the game is effectively over. You have won. Anything you earn after that is just running up the score for no reason. Smart people hate this rule because it feels too simple. They want a complex algorithm. But the power of the rule of 25 is that it gives you something the genius rarely has: a defined enough. When you know your number, every financial decision changes. You stop viewing spending as a reward and start viewing it as a trade-off against your freedom. Suddenly, that new luxury car isn't just $80,000. You realize that $80,000 invested would generate $3,200 of passive income forever. So the question isn't, can I make the payments? The question is this car worth delaying my freedom by 2 years? Sometimes the answer is yes, and that is fine. But often, for the first time in your life, the answer will be no. You see, the true application of your intelligence isn't to figure out how to beat the market. It is to figure out how little you actually need to be happy. Most high achievers are miserable because they have an infinite appetite for more. They let their lifestyle inflate with their income, lockstep, ensuring they never actually get ahead. They are efficient at making money, but terrible at keeping it. The antidote is to use your intelligence to build a life you don't need to escape from and then fund it. When you do this, when you widen the gap between your income and your ego, you stop being a high-paid servant to your lifestyle. You become the master of your time. You stop caring about the scoreboard because you realize you are playing a completely different sport. You aren't trying to be the richest person in the graveyard. You are trying to be the freest person while you are still alive. This is the ultimate reframe. Wealth is not the ability to buy more things. Wealth is the ability to wake up in the morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. That is the only luxury that actually appreciates in value. And unlike the corner office or the Italian sports car, it is the one asset that no one can ever repossess. The tragedy of the high IQ earner is rarely a lack of capability. It is almost always a misapplication of focus. You have spent years using your intelligence to solve complex problems for other people or to navigate the intricate hierarchies of your career. It is time you applied that same intellectual rigor to solving the problem of your own freedom. We discussed 3 specific barriers today: the ego that demands you be exceptional, the efficiency trap that commodifies your time, and the scoreboard mentality that ties your worth to a number. These are not math problems, they are psychological ones. And until you resolve them, more money will simply act as a magnifying glass for your existing anxiety. A broke person worries about paying the bills. A rich person with a poor mindset worries about losing their status. Neither is free, but the moment you drop these beliefs, the friction disappears. You stop trying to beat the market and finally let it work for you. You stop selling your hours and start buying them back. You stop competing with peers who are just as trapped as you were, and you start building a life that feels as good internally as it looks externally. If this approach to money, one based on psychology, behavior, and autonomy rather than hype, resonates with you, then you are in the right place. This channel is designed for people who want to understand the why behind the wealth. We don't chase trends here. We chase principles that work regardless of what the economy is doing. If you want to ensure your mindset is your greatest asset rather than your biggest liability, subscribe. There is plenty more to discuss. Remember, being rich is simply having money. Being wealthy is having time. Don't settle for the first one when you are smart enough to have both. I'll see you in the next video.